Washington County Telecommunications Commission, SWCTC, to order. As previously noticed, this meeting is being conducted by telephonic means pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021. On March 17th, 2020, former board chair Dave Thiede issued a written determination that SWCTC's in-person meetings and meetings conducted under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.02 are not practical or prudent because of a health pandemic or declared emergency. As current chair of the South Washington County Telecommunications Commission, I, Robert James, am not physically present at the commission's regular meeting location, and all commissioners are participating through telephonic means. All commissioners can hear one another and can hear all discussion and testimony. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting by calling the commission's teleconferencing system at 312-626-6799. All members of the public can hear all discussion and testimony and all votes of the commissioners. All votes will be conducted by roll call. So, Mr. Executive Director, do we have quorum for the meeting?
We do have a quorum. We'll go through the roll call right now. Chair James.
Here.
Commissioner Bloom.
Here.
Commissioner Date.
Here.
Commissioner Rahm.
Here.
Commissioner Olson, Justin Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Ingman.
Here.
Let's see, Commissioner Ullman.
Here.
Commissioner Diefenbach.
Here.
And I believe that is roll call.
Thank you.
We also have in
All right.
attendance, Chair, we also have Commissioner Olson and Randy Olson from Woodbury. And we also have Commissioner Thiede from Cottage Grove, and staff members Lonnie Garland and Schweisguth, and myself, Mark Martinez, and our counsel, legal counsel, Vince Roddy. Did I get everybody? I think yeah.
Looks like everybody on my screen.
Oh, sorry. We got one more. Councilmember Patrick Downs from St. Paul Park.
Present.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks for that, Mark. All right. Well, I first need a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda. Do I have a motion and a second?
Commissioner Bloom, motion to approve the agenda.
Ingman, second.
I have a motion and a second. Mark, would you do the roll call or the votes?
Sure. James.
Aye.
Bloom.
Aye.
Date.
Aye.
Rahm.
Aye.
Justin Olson.
Aye.
Ingeman.
Aye.
Downs.
Aye.
Ullman.
Aye.
Diefenbach.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. We move on to public comment. Mark, are you aware of any pre-sent in public comments?
No previously comments sent in, and it doesn't appear to be any additional callers on with us this evening.
Okay, very good. Move on to consent agenda. We've got 5 items that were on the consent agenda. Do we need any discussion on anything? Has anyone asked for any discussion on any of the consent agenda items? Mark?
Not as of yet. I'd like to share my screen, Chair, if you don't mind, just to
Sure.
pull up the go. At their first meeting of the year, we vote on our designations for the year. So I just wanted to bring that up here so everyone could see our designations for the year. Pioneer Press's official newspaper and U.S. Bank as our depository bank. Bradley Law, legal counsel. To the Penny Bookkeeping as bookkeeper. Cullman and Associates as health benefits broker. North Risk Partners as an liability insurance broker through the League of Minnesota Cities. Harrington Langer and Associates as an accounting firm.
Very good.
Also on the consent agenda, there's the current membership list here, contact list. And if you could take a moment and make sure that we have the correct information. I have received an update since this was included in the packet. So I will be sending an updated membership list out next week. And I also attach, I usually do this at the beginning, our first regular commission meeting of the year. I do put the commission director job description in there just for your review, and kind of gives some guidelines as to your duties and responsibilities as a commission director.
That's good
This
for
has
each of us to
been-
review that.
Yes. This has been, job description has been in place for a number of years now, and we could potentially update this, consider updating this this year.
Was there anything in particular that needed to be considered as part of for an update?
Great question. The thing that comes to mind is director education. And this is something that each director has been encouraged historically to attend one of our conferences through our associations, MACTA Association, which I'm currently the president of, and we're a chapter of NATOA, and then Alliance for Community Media. However, because of the pandemic, these conferences have gone virtual, and I believe this year they'll still be virtual. And we might want to create some additional guidelines around director education, potentially. That's one example. But review it, and if you have any recommendations, please let me know.
All right. Well, thanks for going through those, Mark. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items?
I'll move
Motion
to
to
approve.
Second it.
Commissioner Date motioned and Commissioner Ram seconded.
Correct.
You want to go ahead and do the roll call on that, Mark?
Sure. James.
Aye.
Bloom.
Aye.
Date.
Aye.
Rom.
Aye.
Justin Olson.
Aye.
Ingman.
Aye.
Downs.
Aye.
Ullman.
Aye.
Diefenbach.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our reports for the night. We'll start with back to you, Mr. Executive Director.
Thank you, Chair and Commission Directors. Welcome. It's good to see everybody. Hopefully we'll get a chance to go back to a hybrid meeting at some point this year, hopefully soon. I wanted to just go over the commission goals that we set out at the executive committee meeting in January. And most of you have seen this sheet before, and the way that we've listed out kind of what our work plan for the year as a commission. This is kind of a separate document to our strategic plan that just kind of gives you periodic updates as to how we're proceeding through the year. So it starts off with capital projects that we've been approved through this year's budget. And some of the projects are currently underway in Q1. There'll be a more complete report on this in the technology manager report that's coming up. And then this kind of lays out what the plan is for the rest of the year. We've had some ongoing work that we've been doing over the last few years, primarily the franchise renewal. And so that's ongoing. Started back in April of 2018. And currently the current status of that is that we have we proposed a new franchise to Comcast, and they've reviewed it, and they proposed their own set of a proposal for a franchise. And the two of us have, with Bradley Law and the member cities, have reviewed that and gone back and kind of combined both proposals. And we sent that off to Comcast back, that was back in
January?
September of last year. And as of the end of the year, and as of today, we are still awaiting the response to that. Now, a number of things were going to occur that we had planned, primarily the election, which we believe Comcast was wanted to wait and to see how the election had played out. And so there was a change, as you know, at the executive level. And what that means is that there will be changes at the FCC. And so the previous FCC Chairman Pai, stepped down on January 20th. And we have a new acting FCC chairperson, Chair Rosenworcel. And she has not been confirmed yet, but there has been some communication with NATOA and the new FCC chairperson's office, and there's some preliminary indications that this chair will be more favorable towards municipalities and local control. Now, this has just been a minor hint at that, and we'll just have to wait and see. But what that means is that there could be a de-emphasis in the FCC's 621 order that was approved a couple of years ago, and may still eventually impact our revenue and the interpretation of the Cable Act. And Vince may have some more regarding that. But right now, the franchise with Comcast is going to be a priority for this year, but right now it's kind of in a holding pattern. The other thing we were waiting on was the settlement regarding the franchise and PEG fee review and audit. And that was completed right at the very end of last year. We did receive the settlement payment in the amount there on the 15th of January. And so it was determined at the executive committee meeting that revenue would be placed in this year's budget, 2021. And it is currently in our revenue for this year. The other big thing we got going on this year is our lease. As you remember, we signed a 1-year lease extension, which will take us until the end of August of this year. And so we've started the conversation with our current property management, and we anticipate that we'll continue that discussion at our next executive committee meeting in March. And hopefully by April, we'll have a proposal for the entire commission meeting in April to vote on the plan for our office space. The strategic plan is something that we had started last year out intending to do for most of the year, but was put on the back burner for quite a bit of the year due to the pandemic. We had picked it up a bit over the fall of last year. And one of the outcomes, for example, of that was our intent to hire an IT specialist. And so we're currently interviewing applicants for that position right now. and we hope to have some finalists here in the near future. It's been a little challenging finding the right person with the skill sets that we're looking for, but I'd be happy to talk more about that at another time. We're still hopeful, though. The job, we had closed the job application period, but we reopened it until March 8th in hopes of gaining some new applicants. The strategic plan essentially has three pillars of focus, and the first one being the return of value and the work that we do with our member cities and continuing to meet and exceed our member cities' expectations of us. And then the two new pillars with that plan are community engagement and diversifying our revenue. Community engagement was a big part of what we wanted to do. We had, for a number of years, received quite a bit of feedback directly from our member cities and the administration and departments on the needs of the member cities. So we're quite clear. Over the last 2 years, we took steps to really improve the communication between the member cities because we really wanted to understand what the expectation was, and we've done that. And we hope to continue to do that and improve upon it. When we looked at the community as a whole, not only our subscribers out there, but just the citizens and community that make up this joint powers, we had very little feedback as to what the expectation was and what our audience wanted to see from us. So we put some events into place last year where we tried to invite the community in. Even through the pandemic, we held, for example, a chalk art contest online. Last year we did a food drive that a number of you attended, and these are the type of community events that we want to keep doing, and so that way we can engage our community and our viewership, our audience, and get a bit better understanding as to what folks want to see from us. We have gone through kind of an evolution in terms of diversifying our revenue. 2 years ago, it was, we were looking at the 621 order and the potential it could have for really impacting the revenue. And so that's what got the conversation started, and not just with us, but all community media and PEG stations throughout the country, and the ones that depend on franchise fees. And so every media center is approaching it in a different way. And so we're finding our feet with that. We knew that there are things that we wanted to utilize our strengths, and a lot of that is government-related work. And so what we've found as we did some collaborative work through our water documentary, that we started to form some working relationships with the Met Council in Washington County and some others. And so they've actually reached out to us and asked us to provide some work for hire with them. So it's become kind of more of a word of mouth kind of thing, and it's what we're good at. So it seems to be working for us right now, and we hope to do as much of that as we can this year. I'll just move on here to briefly my involvement with MACTA as president. Again, really the FCC order and looking at the health of the PEG stations around Minnesota. It's, as you know, a really vibrant community, and has weathered a lot of storms in the past through the state legislature. We're all thankful that the 621 order hasn't been implemented yet. but we are seeing, that's from a legislative standpoint, but from a consumer standpoint and how consumer habits are changing, there's been a loss of revenue across the board. And so we're looking at ways at which, and not just in Minnesota, but in other states, other associations in their respective states are also looking at a way in which they can really capture some of those revenue losses that really impact municipalities, actually with the use of each city's right of way. So lots of conversation about how we can do that. And so this year's work plan for MACTA is to reach out to state legislators, and really it's kind of an educational year, telling our story and trying to engage both sides of the aisle and create a bipartisan solution towards benefiting the municipalities that are losing revenue. It's an ambitious goal. It's going to be a multi-year kind of project, but that's what we're starting with this year. I did add this last section here, ideas bin, just so we can kind of brainstorm as things come up through the year and make sure that we're keeping track of those. We've talked about creating an RFP for auditing services in early of Q3 this year, so we can make sure we have some bids. We're later in this evening, we're going to be voting on approving Harrington Langer Associates engagement for 2020 audit, and that'll be the 5th year in a row that we worked with them. And then eventually looking at rebranding potentially. And so now I'd like to hand the floor over to our operations manager, Ann Schweisguth, for an operations update, followed by Lonnie Garland with a technology update.
Thanks, Mark. Good evening, commissioners. Mark, can I share my screen?
Sure. Have to make you a host.
While Ann is doing that, do any commissioners have any questions for Mark on what he went over? Mr. Thiede, I see you raising your hand.
He's
You're
muted.
muted.
I know. There you go. How's that?
We can hear you.
So Mark, hey, I have a question for you. You were talking about an IT specialist. We've had some discussion around actually not buying more computer equipment and just kind of hitching a ride with either Cottage Grove or Woodbury, more so Cottage Grove, I think, because of some of the new systems that Cottage Grove just got in. And seeing we have 2 IT managers on the commission here, if we do that, are you going to be able to task this person 100%? What kind of things will this person be doing? I guess I just want to make sure that we don't get somebody on and not necessarily be able to task them 100% with just the cable commission.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Thank you, Commissioner Thiede. We are kind of looking for a unicorn in that there's not only the IT tasks that in the job description, there's also some audiovisual AV integration tasks. And really what's happened over the last 5 years or so with all the capital investment that has gone on in the member cities, such as City Hall and other conference room, it's been a lot of AV support. And there's some goals that we've had long-term from a network side on the IT end. And what we found is that we really haven't had the bandwidth to pursue some of the longer term goals with our network and the connectivity between the member cities and some other kind of video specific archiving and shared editing kind of systems. Primarily, we haven't had the bandwidth because and it's really been Lonnie primarily and Brian Schmidt. There's just been a need out in the field to support these capital projects, project managing, and the whole equipment life cycle of everything that's out in the field, from installation to repair, maintenance, and then just that turning that over as stuff has come up. The addition of the Hero Center was another big facility that we invested a lot of money into. And so it's just been growing, which is great over the last few years. We just haven't had the capacity to do some of the longer term goals that we have internally. And then we also need that extra support also out in the field. So we're looking for somebody with the skill set to build networks, but ideally it has also had some crossover into audiovisual. And what's happened with AV over the last 10 years is that it's become very network based and IP based and digital. And so there's really kind of a large crossover between the two, but it's hard to find that person that's worked in both those fields. So what we're seeing is that the folks that we have interviewed, there's been some high or focus specialty in certain areas, whether it's cloud or network or help desk kind of work.
Okay.
And we're trying to find that person that has a more broader experience, because we feel like, to your point, that yes, there will be days where it's very IT specific, and then there's going to be other days where it's kind of more live event and AV specific work. So we do feel like we'll be able to have enough work for them for sure.
Okay, and Rob and Brian, have you been involved in this, seeing these applicants at all, or resumes?
I can jump in there, Commissioner Thede. We plan to invite Rob, and they helped in initially creating the job description.
Okay, good.
But I haven't included them in the interview process yet, because we're going to bring forward the finalists that we have to them, and that's been the plan so far.
Okay, because there may be some opportunity, obviously, even though it's designated as the Cable Commission. If there's certain skill sets and so forth that could be useful to the member cities of the commission, then it'd be good to know what those skills might be and address those with any applicants that we're looking at finalizing. So, thanks.
Yeah, we have this kind of working relationship that I mentioned to the staff in our staff meetings, that we've built this kind of extension with, for example, with our production staff. We've built an extension with the city's administration and communications department, in particular, public relations, through production. And so what we're trying to do is build an extension of the IT work that Commissioner James and Bloom do through Lonnie, and then ultimately this new role as well.
Good. Well, sorry for interrupting you, Ann, but I knew I wanted to give you a little bit too much time probably to get your presentation going. But if you're ready, we'll turn it back to you.
I am, but I think Commissioner Olson has a question.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Thank you, Mark. Two quick questions. Number one, what is the tool or what tools are in place for recruiting this individual that you're looking for? I'm not as familiar with technical jobs as I am with more customer facing work, but I'm just curious how one goes about recruiting somebody that fits the bill. And then secondly, with respect to the leasing agreement that you're working on, have you had the opportunity to speak with any other building owners or operators? For example, I know the Summerhill Professional Building, they're actively looking for additional tenancy, and they're giving away some rent, and they're doing some different things to try to make sure that they can get as many people over there as possible. Just wondering if that's a negotiating tool that you might be able to use to help get an advantageous price as you're renegotiating your lease.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll start with that. The latter question, which is, we have, over the course of this last year, we're considering a new option of potentially moving at some point into a community hub, similar to Central Park in Woodbury. We had, a couple years ago, we had looked at the Cottage Grove Community Center when it was in kind of its early stages, and as you know, it's recently gained some new support. And it didn't work out in Cottage Grove back then. And what's happened over the last year is that the Woodbury location is a possibility, but it's still maybe 3 or 4 years off. And so we're looking at something to get us over this this time of 3 or 4 years, which typically we would be looking at, a 5 or a 10-year type lease agreement. And so last year when we were looking around, we did look at more differently zoned buildings, because this is zoned at a higher rate, commercial rate, and retail. And so we wanted to find something that was zoned differently. And so we did look at some of the other properties that Summerhill has, the one just north of us, and one in Woodbury as well. And because of the pandemic, we just felt like it was just best for the organization to just extend for 1 year and revisit it now. And so I think, yes, I mean, ultimately the goal is always is about sustainability and keeping expenses down as best we can as revenues are. There's some, the continued just kind of uncertainty of some of the revenue component. And so, yes, we would definitely like to look at all options. That would include other Summerhill properties. I just received an email from Commissioner Bloom supporting that we should look at some other options before we make a decision. We were thinking it's going to be easier to stay where we're at, but it's definitely at a higher price. So it's something, something we should definitely look at. The former question is, we had initially gone through some of the kind of more standard type of job posting areas, like some of the websites you see, Indeed, LinkedIn, posting it on our website and through our social media. And we got 133 applicants. And so there was no shortage of applicants. Again, it was just we're trying to kind of thread this needle of what we're looking for. And so when we reopened the job, we reached out to some of our network internally. We have an internal, through all the PEG systems in Minnesota, there's listservs, and one of them is called MGAP. And so it connects a lot of the technical people in the area that work in community media. So we reached out to that group, and we've also reached out now recently to the Society of Broadcast Engineers. I think it's been widely distributed pretty well. And yeah, we just hope to find the right fit, really. Was that
Thank you.
helpful?
Perfect. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Okay, Anne.
All right. I thought I would start off by giving you a couple of numbers tonight. 2020, we did 160 city meetings last year, which was a very high number. The year before, I think we did 138. So dealing with technical issues and the pandemic, I mean, a lot of props go to Lonnie and the part-time cablecasters for getting so many meetings done and doing it in a really important fashion for a year that this was the only way that people were going to see meetings. So we're very proud of that number. We did 212 videos, which is also an incredible number because the year before we did 221. So even with all the challenges we had producing videos, where there were several months we couldn't be in the same room with people. So to get 212 is a very good number. YouTube, all of our social media accounts all increased followers, but YouTube I found the most interesting. It increased 36%. And I suppose we could say that it was because people were home more and online more, but I like to think it's because they're loving us just a little bit more, like 36% more. So that's really fun to see. So as we say goodbye to 2020, we started talking about 2021 late last year. We went through a lot of meetings to start planning what videos we were going to make. We held discussions with the communications teams in Woodbury and Cottage Grove, and several different departments like recreation, planning, economic development, environmental sustainability. There was a lot of meetings talking about what kind of information they want to get out there. So we're really excited about the plan we have for this year and all the videos that we're hoping to make. One thing that came out of that planning session was a brand new series we're starting called Local Biz. We're working with the city of Woodbury. It's going to be a monthly segment that's going to be hosted by an actor that we're currently hiring. And it's going to be all about business in Woodbury. So the city is excited about it. We're excited about it. The first episode, and every episode will be, like under 10 minutes. And we'll be going to different businesses or talking about business topics. And the first episode should come out in April. So we're very excited about that show. Mark was talking about work for profit. We're just finishing up our first work for profit job this year. This was actually for the city of Cottage Grove. And you might be asking, why were we doing a work for profit from the city of Cottage Grove? It's because they got a grant to make some recycling videos. So they had children's entertainer Trisha and the Toonies approach them to make a series of recycling videos for elementary school children. So the city contacted us and said, we'd like to pay for it out of this grant money. And we got the job. I think we have kind of an inside with the city of Cottage Grove. So that's good that they hired us. So that is wrapping up and should be hitting schools next month. I wanted to show you guys a couple of videos tonight. Hopefully they play okay for you. January, February, we always get some requests about snow plows and education. So our lead producer, Bob McSherry, made this. And this is actually our very first, believe it or not, our very first stop motion Lego commercial.
Cars blocking the plow.
Help out our plow drivers by observing our city's winter parking regulations. This helps them clear the streets, making it easier for you to get around.
Who doesn't love a good stop motion Lego, right? We also got a request to educate people about where they're putting their trash cans in relation to snow plows. So government producer Justin Atkinson, along with some collaboration with communications manager for the city of Cottage Grove, Scott Soroka, and government producer Brian Schmidt was also on the shoot. And this one, I think, was pretty fun.
With this front moving in, very soon we're going to see 2 to 4 inches of snow in Cottage Grove. Hey, sir, if you leave your trash cans up in the driveway, the trash man can still get them, and I can still plow the road curb to curb. Listen, buddy, no one's going to tell me where I can and can't put my trash cans. What's the big deal anyways? I can't believe it's serious!
If the plow blades get too close to the garbage can, they, or the snow they're pushing, can knock the trash can over. Not a mess anyone wants to see or deal with. If the plow driver takes it wide to avoid the can, a good portion of the street is unplowed, making it tough for two vehicles to pass.
With this front moving in, we're going to see 20 inches of snow in Cottage Grove.
Snowplow operators, waste haulers, and motorists in Cottage Grove, we offer our sincerest thanks. Summer will be here before we know it.
So that was great. Both of those gentlemen work at the Public Works Department in Cottage Grove and were perfect for their parts. One thing I really loved about that piece was it aired on social media, and Cottage Grove has a very big Facebook following. And for days after this aired on social media, people were commenting on independent posts in the neighborhood groups saying, hey, I hope my garbage can's in the right place. So you know that the word got out there and people were listening, and that was the whole point, was to educate people. So, I mean, that's really the whole reason the city works with us, is so that we can get the word out, and video is a very effective way of doing that. So that is my report. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Congratulations on the 2 videos. Well done.
Thank you. Kudos to all the producers.
Thanks, Ann. Great work. And now I'd like to hand it over to Lonnie Garland for technology update.
Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good night. Lots of things going on. We have both golf courses are getting updates as we speak. River Oaks is getting a major, well, they're both getting major updates, but River Oaks is a big project. All new conferencing systems, so Zoom meetings and everything can take place. New monitors, new audio. Eagle Valley and Woodbury is the same thing. Although it's a smaller scale, they'll still have all the capabilities that River Oaks will have. Actually, cameras for Zoom meetings. From talking to the golf course managers, both of them are very excited, and they already have plans for meetings either through the city, or people are still renting spaces, even though it's in limited numbers. But they are using those facilities, so they're really excited. And our goal was to get it done before the weather turned nice, and when you know, it's already 40 degrees, so things are going fast. We've had a little issue in River Oaks. There were some scheduling issues, but they're back on track. They should finish the install early next week, and programming will begin next week. And fingers crossed that one will be done and ready for the city to take over, or the golf course to take over the following Friday. There will be some training involved. There might probably be like a half a day of training for staff, and we're trying to set that up too. Eagle Valley should also be done following that. Following Friday, I guess, Rob. They're doing really well over there. I talked to them today. We did have an issue with the audio DSP with the bad weather in Texas, and there's a fire engine. There's always a fire somewhere that causes problems. And this is good to note that monitors are going to become hard to find and get in the next 3 to 4 months because of a chip company that builds chips for the monitors burned down, I guess. And so that's going to cause a delay in getting monitors. We should be good. We have all that stuff purchased already. And even the police department, Brian, for their room is already purchased. So we should be okay there. So hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, we'll be on track to have those golf courses up and running. And when the weather turns nice, they'll be able to utilize those and enjoy them. We're kind of holding off things until Q3. I know we still have the room over in Woodbury, the EOC room that we have to look at yet. That'll probably be later this year. We have one room at Cottage Grove Police Department that we're putting a touch screen in. So that's the newer stuff. We're working with Newport right now. As everyone knows, they're building a new facility for their City Hall, police, and fire. We just had a meeting with Deb and Travis over there today about their needs. I already have the chambers designed. They forgot to think about like other rooms, like conference rooms and stuff, but we're going to keep it simple over there. They don't need a lot. Probably a camera for Zoom meetings. And I think we'll do the bring your own device system over there to keep costs down with computers and that kind of thing. We're still planning and trying things there. So, we can discuss more later when we get a better handle on exactly what all they will need. I'm gonna get some pricing here in the next couple of months too. So hopefully later this year I can give you guys an update on that. They're supposed to start the ground breaking. I think in April they're going to do like some trenching and that kind of stuff. They're not looking to get in that building until 2022, early 2022 is what I was told. So lots of other things happening. We've some new equipment we've purchased. We've got some camera support gear. We've got new lights, all kinds of cool stuff to make our productions even better. We got to win another award, so that's our goal. So you got one, you got to get another one. And we do have a new production van now, and we're setting that up. And it's actually nice for me to go do sound checks and stuff. Still using my own vehicle and no reimbursement for gas. Then we're just using the company vehicle. We've taken on a couple of shoots, and it's kind of nice because it's like we just throw everything in there that we want, and if it's not already in there, and so you always have everything you need. The van's set up for production. We bought it from a production person. It has an air compressor built in, and it also has a power inverter built into the van, so we can plug our equipment in right into the van and run it from the van, which is really nice if you're out on a remote shoot. So it's parked out back. We're having a surveillance system put in to survey, keep an eye on it just in case. Hopefully nobody messes with it, but you never know. And then we're looking for the IT person. We're still shopping that, or still interviewing for that. And then, hopefully when we get them on board, I've got a list. I know Mr. Olson was asking about that. I have a list that will keep them busy for a very long time. Things that I haven't been able to get to for a while. So definitely keep him busy. Or her, I'm sorry. The person will be busy. That's about all I have. So if you got questions, please ask.
All right. Well, not hearing any questions. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Ann. And thank you, Lonnie, for your update. Appreciate that. That was good. All right. I think we're moving on to Treasurer financial update, Mr. Executive Director.
Yep. I have a draft actual here included in the packet. It has been updated. I am not anticipating any other invoices from 2020 hitting the budget. We did have about 15,000 that came in late from ABI with regard to the Hero Center. The things that really stand out are that the revenues were greater than expected by approximately 150,000. Expenses were down in administrative expense and building expense pretty much on target, very close to hitting our target with our capital investments. Master control, we expended more in that area. A lot of that had to do with a lot of the Zoom stuff that we were doing and equipping our offices and remote offices. And then wages were not as were less than expected. And there was this area here in the health insurance that I must have over budgeted for, and I don't know why, but I will look into that. What we're looking at then is we were looking at a positive net revenue of approximately $281,000, $281,589 and 19 as we stand today. And then I included the balance sheet so you could have some insight into what our savings looks like. Our reserves at 1.7. This was printed on the 22nd, and 318 in our checking. We expend approximately $100,000 a month. So about every quarter, I will transfer about 300 or so thousand from the reserve into our checking. And this is also confirmed from previous audits. Total assets of over 4 million. Any questions on the treasurer report, end of year actuals? We do have an agenda item coming up in regards to the net positive return to the city that we'll be discussing here shortly.
Great. All right. Thank you, Mark. Hearing no additional questions, we'll move on to Mr. Roddy for our legal update. Take it away, Vince.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. As you can see on your screens, there is a legal update report that our firm provided to this commission already, so I'm not going to go through everything here and read off screen for you, but I would like to highlight a few items for you. An update to that first item there on the cable franchising order appeal. Oral argument has been scheduled in that appeal for April 15th of this year. We did just receive word a few hours ago that the FCC is willing to meet to potentially discuss their litigation posture in this case. It's unclear at this time whether that means a full withdrawal, as we've seen in some of the FCC's other cases around the nation, namely their net neutrality case out in California. But we will see. Regardless, oral argument's been scheduled, and we still anticipate receiving a decision from the Sixth Circuit sometime in the latter half of this year. Moving on to the FCC's new over-the-air reception device or OTARD rules. I know you've been updated on this a few times now. But the FCC, again, as a reminder, the FCC previously proposed to limit and really effectively abolish local regulation or local authority to regulate the installation of wireless antennas on private property. And namely, we're talking about small cell facilities here. That's really what we're talking about. Minnesota local governments, as most of you know, typically regulate the placement of these antennas through a zoning process when it's on private property. So this commission joined a consortium of municipal entities that filed comments arguing that the FCC lacked both statutory authority to enact these rules and that the proposed rules really failed to protect consumers at all. I would say that perhaps finding our statutory authority argument persuasive, the FCC ultimately enacted a much more scaled back version of their proposed rule. So now this new rule that they have enacted is limited, though, to what are called hub and relay antennas. Some of you IT people will probably be familiar with this. For those of you that are not, which includes myself, these are antennas that will take in signals and essentially just feed them back out like a repeater, is my understanding. And the FCC's rule is limited not only just to that type of antenna, but those antennas, those hub and relay antennas that are used to only provide broadband service, because that's the only area where the FCC has authority to act here. The FCC in their report and order did specifically respond to this commission's comments about consumer protections. It's always nice when you're recognized by the FCC, though the FCC did find that the consumer protections we were arguing for were not necessary, possibly due to the much more limited scope of the rule. Finally, we have an update on the DOJ's review of its consent decrees, with BMI and ASCAP. I'm sure you all saw on the financial documents that Mark just shared, there is a line for music licensing fees. So, and as a reminder, these two music licensing entities control roughly 90% of the public performance licensing market. So we're talking about almost all licensing activity here. And because of that, these two entities are subject to consent decrees that restrict certain anti-competitive behaviors in the United States. These consent decrees are enforced by the United States Department of Justice, which is why the DOJ was asking for public comment on the decrees themselves. And the decrees really, they affect prices in terms of all music and really all other performative works licensed by the commission, really the member cities as well. I mean, this includes music that's played in public buildings like your city halls, sports arenas, schools, libraries. They're all paying a fee. So in 2019, the DOJ sought comment on how, if at all, to modify these consent decrees, really hinting at the possibility of terminating the decrees just altogether. This commission, in coordination with a number of other municipal entities throughout the United States, so including groups like Oklahoma City, filed comments really urging the DOJ to keep these consent decrees in place, and if anything, modify the decrees to protect against abusive copyright litigation. I think that would be something that's important for someone who licenses music like the member cities and the commission here. After all of that, earlier this year, so really just last month, after completing its review, the DOJ has determined that it does not need to take any action at this time. I'm happy to answer any questions I have on any of that or anything else that we've talked about at this meeting.
Well, Vince, I think you've done a good job of updating everyone. I don't hear any questions. So moving on, I think we're on to unfinished business. Mark, we're going to be addressing the bylaws amendment. Is that correct? Yes.
Thank you, Chair, Commission Directors. Back in December, we had talked about revising the bylaws to move our annual meeting to the first meeting of the year, which historically has been in January. It's in February this year because of my request to focus this year on strategic planning and kind of tee that up for the year, starting with the executive committee meeting that was last month. But next year, the intent is to go back to January having the regular meeting. And historically, we had also elected our officers at the final meeting of the year in December. And what we found out last year, and it's actually come up periodically over the last 5 years that I've been here, but we decided to move our officer elections and our annual meeting from December to January to make it easier for member city appointments to the commission and just making the election process a smoother process. So with some minor revisions to the bylaws, which are included in the packet, it will change the nomination procedure and the start of the elections from September to November. And we'll also move the annual meeting from November to January. And it also has a minor edit here with regards to when our regular meeting falls on a holiday. It always falls on Thanksgiving as the fourth Thursday of the month in November. And so this just states that the meeting shall follow to the following Thursday. And the commission can always make another recommendation for a different day, but at least the recommendation here in the bylaws is the next week. Historically, we have combined the November and December meetings into one meeting, and it has historically been the following Thursday from Thanksgiving. So this will just give the commission a chance to kind of plan for that to happen in the future. And that was it. Any questions on the bylaws revision? So the action requested then is that the executive committee recommends approval of the amendment to the bylaws that will effectively make the first regular commission meeting in January the annual meeting, and will conduct officer elections at that January meeting beginning in 2022.
Nope, the language reflects exactly what I thought we talked about at the executive committee, so that looks good to me. Are there any questions or any suggestions for anything else? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve this bylaw amendment.
This is
Motion
Tracy.
to
I'll make a recommendation that we approve the amendment.
Second,
Our bylaws.
Commissioner Bloom.
All right, we got a motion by Commissioner Rahm to approve it and a second by Commissioner Bloom. Mark, do you want to do the roll?
Okay, Commissioner James,
Aye.
Bloom,
Aye.
Date,
Aye.
Rom,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Ingman,
Aye.
Downs,
Aye.
Ullman,
Aye.
Diefenbach.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, thank you, Mark. All right, moving on to new business. First item is the 2020 return to the cities, which Mark, you had hinted at earlier, with the revenue, the overage that we had with our revenues versus expenses. So want to take that one?
Sure. Thanks, Chair James. Yes, going back to the P&L actual and the net revenue, net income here. Again, I don't anticipate any significant change to that, if any at all. What had the way the timeline had occurred was that at the executive committee meeting in January, I had received an email notification of our Q4 revenue for the end of the year. I had not received the actual payment at that time, but the executive committee was able to, I was able to show a forecast of where we were landing for the year, and that there was certainly going to be this net income. And so the executive committee recommended that at this regular commission meeting, it would be distributed into what we've, the return based on our reserve policy that went into place back in 2018, such that City of Woodbury would receive 2/3 of the net income, and the City of Cottage Grove would receive 1/3. And so this evening, the executive committee recommends returning the 2020 net revenue amount of $589.19 in 2/3 and 1/3 payments, respectively, to the cities of Woodbury and Cottage Grove, Woodbury will receive a distribution of $187,726.13, and Cottage Grove will receive $93,863.06 in total.
Thank you, Mark.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's all, I think, in keeping with our previous discussions about the return of value formula and a reserve policy. So that feels in keeping with what our previous discussion has been about the return to the city. So does anyone have any questions related to this?
Commissioner James?
Yes.
This is Commissioner Downs. I'm just curious. I know what the policy is, and I know the way it's been set up for the return on investment. But last year I had an opportunity to be on the Human Resources Subcommittee, and got to sit in some meetings with Mr. Martinez and talk about things like insurance for the employees, raises and such. And it's difficult to have sat in on those meetings and watched Director Martinez, really work incredibly hard, talking about, thousands of dollars, a small percentage of what this ROI would be in terms of, savings and, and how does it impact the employee costs. And to me, it's just really difficult to see us doing this ROI, knowing that I think there's a need that's evident and I think reasonable in terms of working with our, the employees of the commission and the employees of the, that work every single day. The money it would take to provide, affordable, reasonable health care to these employees is something I think maybe we should reconsider about whether or not we're at a point where we have the size of the ROI we have. I just have a real hard time having sat in on those HR subcommittee meetings and seeing that, for a few $1,000s, what we could do for wage increases, cost of living adjustments, and really kind of helping people in this time have, again, affordable, reasonable health insurance. In my mind, it's almost unconscionable that we would be slighting those issues and slighting those priorities and having this return. And again, I understand budgets, I understand, year to year, but it doesn't change my thinking right now in that either currently or moving forward, maybe there should be some additional thought, or there should be some kind of mechanism that looks at some of those needs, some of those issues, some of those costs that I think are reasonable and necessary for the people who are working every single day for this commission. Maybe there should be some way we could address that before we make a vote, or we consider, what is the outstanding amount that we would want to pay out on an ROI. And again, it just, having sat in on those meetings and seeing this amount of money that's just being put out into, the general city coffers, again, it's difficult to see, it's difficult to hear. For me, it's nothing that I can, in good conscience, really vote for at this point. So I just wanted to throw those comments out there. And again, I really want to really focus on the painstaking, time-consuming cartwheels I've seen Mr. Martinez do in some of these meetings where we're really struggling to pinch every penny and make everything go, and really try to balance, what's a reasonable, rational, percentage raise for an employees, for a group of employees who I think do good work, do hard work. So it's, for me, this ROI and the things that I've seen, there's a real disconnect. And I guess I really wanted to share that with the other commissioners, and I really wanted to bring to attention the level of work and the amount of real industry that Mr. Martinez has brought to the health insurance issue and to the pay increase issue.
So with your discussions on, well, let's just talk, the specifics about health insurance. So are you saying that we've cut back on health insurance coverage for the employees?
No, I think we're just looking at, what's the right ratio of employee contribution, employer contribution, the levels of plans. I mean, I don't want to, not that would bore you, but I mean, the technical difficulties multiply incredibly rapidly when you're talking about levels of plans, deductibles versus, co-pays. I mean, it becomes incredibly complicated. And you're looking at some of these different plans, the cost difference to the commission was, in the thousands of dollars. I mean, they weren't these overwhelming numbers. So, in order to provide, again, what I would consider reasonable, decent, affordable insurance, and particularly given the world we live in, it wouldn't cost or wouldn't be that unreasonable to put more maybe commission money towards that, particularly when you see that there's a $280,000 surplus for the last year. So again, I don't want to get into the details because they're just way too many and it's just too complicated. And but again, I want to keep it on the big picture, which is having sat in on those meetings and seeing the difficulties and the thought that was going into what I would consider our modest costs. I mean, we're talking thousands of dollars, maybe tens, maybe when you're talking about, pay increases or cost of living increases. I mean, the increases in the costs that we were looking at in those HR subcommittee meetings, again, were pale in comparison to the ROI that we're talking about tonight. I'd rather just, again, focus on the big picture. So.
Well, from my perspective, the big picture is this is a look back. We're looking back at last year's and those costs for health insurance and the raises that were given out. Those were given out, and so this is money that was above and beyond what was used, and what was brought in versus what was used. So you're bringing up questions that, from my mind, are thinking about looking forward. If you're having issues about the health insurance, are we providing adequate health insurance and providing equitable health insurance? That's a future thing that we can't do anything about last year's costs for that. So if you want to bring something up about health insurance or our compensation for the plans for the employees for the year ahead, that's a 2021 discussion to be had as part of that budget or for the 2022 budget. But the money that we're talking about and we're voting on tonight is 2020 dollars. And so I think we're mixing two different years worth of conversation here from my perspective.
No, and again, I understand that clearly. And I guess, Mike, I'll go back to an earlier comment I said, which was it would be, I don't know if it's appropriate or be prudent or anybody would have an interest in, in a year where you have an ROI, could we have, or is anybody interested in maybe a mechanism where we would say, given that we don't see the ROI to the end of the year, is a way that we can then use that ROI prospectively, or I know you can't retroactively apply it, but my suggestion was at the beginning of is, would it be valuable? Would there be an interest in saying, in a case where we have this return, should we have a discussion? Should we have a mechanism that says, from last year's budget and finally, after fourth quarter numbers come in, are there things we can look at, or are there things that we could use this to maybe address some other issues that maybe weren't anticipated or people haven't necessarily thought of? Because again, when the budget's made, we don't know, nobody could project that we were going to have $208,000 over, right? I mean, you don't know that till it's over. So my suggestion was, is it worthwhile, or is it appropriate to maybe have a mechanism or a step where we would look back or look forward, knowing that we have this ROI available to us, or these additional funds?
So if I may interject, Commissioner Downs, I appreciate that perspective on health insurance and compensation. And I wasn't part of the HR committee, so I'm not really sure what's there. But I would suggest that if Director Martinez, Mark, if you feel like a proposal should be sent to the executive committee, then I think that's something to bring up for future discussion. I think tonight what we're talking about is 2020. I will say I'm not interested in modifying the policy as written now. The commission has worked very hard on this policy, and I think that we need to stay the course and follow the policy. And actually, I think it was maybe 2 years ago when I first came on, where we budgeted back to the cities $300,000. And I had said, well, maybe we don't need to budget it back. Maybe we just give what's left over. But if that is a concern that we have this much money left over, I'd suggest that we add that back into the budget. So it's very clear that the intention is that there is a return to the cities every year.
I have one concern here. All cities contribute, only 2 get money back.
And this is a conversation that's happened for many years, and Woodbury contributes 2/3 of all of the revenue that goes into SWCTC, and much more than what we get back. And some cities get much more out of it than they contribute. So that's why we have the policy. If we have a policy in place, we're following the policy. If we were not following the policy, there might be a reason not to agree with it. But as commission members, our responsibility is to vote in favor of the policy as it's written. And if you don't like the policy, then we can work towards changing it. But right now we're following the policy as written.
Okay.
I would,
So I will
I would
move-
interject there too, when we went over this return of value and everything, and we were going through all sorts of different things and saying, what benefits do the different cities get, and trying to assess the value and therefore any of the profit of how do you split that up. We did it every which way from Sunday, and it was always coming back that it was Woodbury and Cottage Grove, because of, as Commissioner Dates said, the amount of money that gets put in by those 2 cities, that it was always coming back to them. And then if you looked at it and said, well, okay, there's definitely with some of the member cities, smaller member cities, like Newport's getting a brand new city hall, and so new equipment, everything. So do you take that total, which is going to be more than probably what gets put into the kitty from the subscribers in that city? Do you then say that gets calculated in for how many years and so forth? So so it was getting so complex that we said, well, let's just kind of bring it down and try to simplify it, and that's kind of what came out of it.
So in reality, what you're saying is the city of Newport will not be paying for any of the equipment that goes into the new city hall. The cable commission will be. Is that what you said?
That's correct. Right.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
And this is Commissioner Rom. Again, these were just discussions we've had years. I know before some of you people were on the commission, and these were the best, I guess, compromise positions that we could to keep a unified and whole South Washington County Telecommunication Commission together when it came right down at the bottom line. And again, different cities come around where the commission has invested in the audiovisual capabilities and computers and cameras and that kind of stuff. And now it's coming to be Newport's turn, and other cities will get their turn too. So I'm satisfied with all the things that we've done in the past. This is an equitable situation that we worked out. And so again, I support it going forward.
Well, that's some good conversation to be had, and we can talk further about it, especially as we get into either budget planning or if there's enough people that want to talk about the policy. But I agree. For tonight, we need to vote on this return to the city based on the policy that's in place. So, if there's any further comment, I'd entertain. If there's no additional comment, then I'd entertain a motion and a second to approve the return to cities.
Commissioner Blow, motion to return the money to the cities, Woodbury and Cottage Grove.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. So we can, Mark, would you do the roll?
Yes. Commissioner James,
Aye.
Bloom,
Aye.
Date,
Aye.
Rom,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Ingeman,
Aye.
Downs,
I abstain.
Ullman,
Aye.
Diefenbach.
Aye.
Motion is approved and with one abstention.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our auditors, Harrington and Langer and Associates, the engagement auditor. Mark, you want to cover that?
Yes, Commissioner or Chair James. Let's see here. As I mentioned before, Harrington Langer and Associates, I've worked with them since I've been here, and but this will be the 5th audit that I've worked with them on, and so it was my request to the executive committee that we approve this engagement letter with them, which is at an expense not to exceed $8,800 for the 2020 audit, and with a note that we will, as I mentioned before, in middle part of this year, Q3, collect bids for this audit work for next year. And so the action requested at this time is that the executive committee and executive director recommends that the commission accept the Harrington Langer Associate audit engagement for 2020 financials at an expense not to exceed $8,800. The engagement letter is in the packet for your review.
No, that looks very straightforward as it has in the past. So, and then who needs to sign this, Mark? Is it just you?
Yes, once approved, then I've asked HLA to forward me a digital copy for digital signatures. So I would be required to sign it first, and then it would be automatically forwarded to you for governance signature.
Okay, all right. Well, that seems very straightforward. Anybody have any questions or comments to make on this? And if not, I would
just one question or comment. We are going to look at shopping this out again next year, I think, Mark, just to make sure that we're getting the right type of this is in line and everything.
Yeah,
it's been 5 years.
Based on your recommendation in January, I've included it onto the work plan for this year, so that way we don't. So that way we ensure that we get some bids around Q3 of this year.
That's fine. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, I would entertain a motion to accept this engagement agreement with Harrington Langer and Associates.
So moved by Commissioner Olson.
Second.
Ingeman.
Ingeman, second.
Second. Very good. We have a motion and a second. Mark, would you do the roll?
James.
Aye.
Bloom.
Aye.
Date.
Aye.
Rom.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Ingeman.
Aye.
Downs.
Aye.
Ullman.
Aye.
Diefenbach.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Thank you.
Good. And last item for the new business is the revised company vehicle policy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is this, remind us again, is this, when was this policy first put in place? And really, what are the changes that we're looking at with this, Mark?
It was first put in place when we revised our employee handbook a few years ago. I believe that was 2018 as well, or maybe 17. And there was, because we're working with the Society of Human Resources Management on that employee handbook and their handbook builder that we pay a subscription fee towards. There was automatically a company vehicle policy, kind of a basic policy that was included in that handbook, but we didn't have a vehicle at the time. And now that we do, we recognize that it needed to be detailed out a little bit further. And so this just puts some of the operational expectations and a little bit more emphasis on safety and procedures. It's been vetted by our legal counsel, and also the staff has weighed in on this document. And so now it's been prepared to bring to you for a vote, so that we can implement this and update this into our employee handbook. Vince, is there any other comment you'd want to add to this?
No, I think the only other thing, well, I suppose, yes, I'd like to add that the goal of this policy is to protect the employees, right, and ensure that they're acting in a safe manner when they're using the commission's van. But more importantly, it protects the commission from certain legal liabilities. So if you have, not that I think that any of our employees would, but if you have an employee that is, we'll say, creating liabilities, if there's operating the vehicle while under the influence of some sort of drug or alcohol, if they're texting and driving, things like that, and an accident results, that no longer becomes a commission issue. That is strictly the employee's issue, the offending employee's issue.
So do all employee-related policies have to be approved by the full commission, or does Mark have any latitude as the executive director to approve internal policies?
I'm not aware of him having any sort of delegated authority to do this. I suppose the commission could have previously delegated authority to Mark to create and implement a vehicle policy, and then it would not come before the commission like this, or there wouldn't be a vote on it. He would just bring it to you as an FYI, and that is certainly a workflow we can explore moving forward.
But otherwise, all like HR policies or whatever have to be approved by us then?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, at the bare minimum, I'm bringing this as an information item to the commission, and for full transparency and an opportunity for the commission to be aware of what's going on with the policies. Previously, with the employee handbook, I don't believe the employee handbook as a whole went to a vote, but was passed through as a consent item previously. But there is some significant liabilities in this particular policy that could impact the commission. So that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention.
And then all existing employees would just have to read and sign this then for 2021.
That's
right,
correct.
Mark?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which we have received the signed copies.
Okay. Any questions or suggestions related to the policy from anyone? All right. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to accept this revised policy.
Motion to approve the policy, Commissioner Bloom.
Second, Commissioner Date.
We have a motion and a second. Mark, do you want to run the roll on this?
Or Chair James?
Aye.
Commissioner Bloom?
Aye.
Commissioner Date?
Aye.
Commissioner Rom?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Engelmann?
Aye.
Commissioner Downs?
Aye.
Commissioner Ullman?
Aye.
and Commissioner Diefenbach.
Aye.
Motion approved. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you for your work on that and protecting the organization. All right. We're at the item 9, commission comments and requests. Does anyone have any last comments or requests that you'd like to make at this point?
So I have one coming from Gray Cloud, I guess. I'm not sure if you guys are aware or not. I'm new on the commission, but we have 6 properties that don't receive any service from Comcast available. I'm actually one of them lucky 6. But my neighbor got a bid for like $13,000 to get it run in, and then the other neighbor on the other side got a bid for like $17,000 to get it run in.
What?
I guess. Yeah, it's just outrageous. It's one street, and I'm not sure. We do have really long driveways, but they don't even have service down our street, and it's Geneva Avenue. I guess I don't know. Just for our aspect, I guess I don't know how to start anything or what even our options are to even get service at least ran down our street for an option.
I can send you, Commissioner Ullman, some communications I've had with Comcast in the past and with Cheryl, the town clerk, regarding that area in Gray Cloud. And we also have pursued looking at the Minnesota State's border-to-border grant program for that area. I do know that the grant is continuing through next year. And anyway, there's some specific details I can forward, and we can go through the details, and that'll at least give you some insight as to where we're at with that.
Okay, appreciate it.
Mark, wasn't there with that broadband grant? It wasn't a full, wasn't intended to cover the full cost, but it would be like a matching grant, so there would have to be some cost participation by either a business or the residents of the community, correct?
That's correct. Yep. The state broadband department would fund up to 50% of the cost. And it was strongly encouraged that the township find the other 50% either through a matching grant with a business or a corporation, or through their own general budget. But yeah, there's a lot of details, and I'm happy to go through those with you.
That'd be great. Yeah, they've allowed us to, I know my neighbor, I brought home a backhoe from work. They allowed us to dig it, and then they came and did it for free, but then they still wanted to charge them, in the street and all that stuff. So I'm fine running it down my driveway, but it seems kind of weird that we're 2,000 feet down the road to just run that down the road, and to try and charge that kind of money to every owner there is kind of a little far-fetched. And then they're all over the place. It's not even consistent.
Yeah, right. This is not Texas either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, picking up some of those extra costs is another way of matching funds. If the portions of the labor can be offset in another way, that's definitely another way of meeting those expenses.
Okay. Yeah, send me what you have. It'd just be nice to know, and I can let my neighbors and all them that are asking understand it.
Will do.
And if I could jump in quickly, I will say, Commissioner Ullman, welcome to the commission. But the issues you're experiencing are not, anecdotally, I'll say that many areas of the Twin Cities, especially as we get to kind of the second or third ranked suburbs, are experiencing that exact same issue in those relative same dollar amounts, we'll say. So your issues are not unique. We have identified, I know you heard, or you may have heard, Mr. Martinez talk a little bit earlier about cable franchise renewal. And we have identified building out to certain pockets of Gray Cloud Island Township as one of our needs in cable franchise renewal. That doesn't mean that we will be able to address that in the cable franchise, but it is something we are looking at and studying.
Yeah.
good.
Thanks, Vince. Yep.
So just out of curiosity, would Comcast allow them to run their own cable on poles down the street and then connect to their houses, and then Comcast would just connect to the endpoint and where they exist, and then so they're connected?
Well, I can't speak for Comcast, but I'm happy to invite them to our next commission meeting. So there's a Comcast representative here.
Yeah, Dan, I don't know if you guys would be willing to do that, but that might be cheaper than what they're quoting you to, if you just drop in some poles and run the cables yourself. But I don't know.
We
go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, for three of us, we're just getting further away. But one new owner that built, he paid I think it was like $18,000 or $17,000 to get Comcast run, and they ran it out from Gray Cloud Trail down Geneva. So he's the only one with the box. But Comcast has allowed us. We brought a backhoe home and we've kind of dug driveway to driveway, and then they'll come lay it for us. But it's probably not the right aspect. They should be doing it, or somebody probably more professionally should be doing it than what we're doing. But we're just trying to make it work.
Sure.
For a somewhat reasonable price.
Well, you're asking the question of the right people, and so we can see what we can do to help, and Mark can pass that information along.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other comments or questions or requests?
I did want to ask if there's an interest in going back to hybrid meetings in April.
Yeah. So April would be the for the full commission meeting in April.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess we're getting close to. We'll just have to see how the next 2 months progress with the vaccine and all that.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think we get to our next executive committee meeting, and then we can decide. Yeah, at some point do we start doing hybrid? We did a meeting, at least one meeting I know down in Cottage Grove, for some people in person and some people hybrids or virtual. So I think we'll
October. Yeah.
October. Yeah. So at some point, yeah, I think we should entertain that. So why don't we talk about that at the executive committee meeting?
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Well, if there are no other comments or requests, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So move
to adjourn.
We had a motion from Ingman and Olson. All right. Want to do a roll, Mark?
Okay. Commissioner James?
Aye.
Bloom?
Aye.
Date?
Aye.
Rom?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Ingeman?
You betcha. Aye.
Downs?
Aye.
Omen?
Aye.
Diefenbach?
Aye.
Motion is approved.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Discussion. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.